Hey guys, welcome back again to Beer Talks with Letu. Today's Gnosis Vuyokazi Ngemntu. We're gonna be talking about obviously hair and beer. No, in life. So I've got ECV behind the camera and the ghost. The ghost is Sean Pagate, the guy who's not handsome enough for TV. So we're gonna keep him at the back, but you're gonna hear his voice every now and then. We are okay. Sharp. How's life? How's the whole COVID situation and all these things? I think these days we're starting a COVID.
Current.
My current.
As opposed to hugs and
no, I mean I still do hugs,
proximity.
guys. No, guys, hugs.
You still do hugs?
Hugs are life.
You're one of the few remaining that have not been turned into
like
androids.
you feel like you're a human being. Nah, guys, I don't want to miss out on the hugs. Honestly, I know there's that risky. Don't. But if we're already close enough to do this, I think we're already close enough.
Might as well. Team around other.
Yeah.
I'm so pumped. No, I'm good. I'm good. I've been maintaining myself.
Yeah.
Like on a day-to-day basis, though, in that not to discredit any of the anxiety that this whole situation has projected on everyone, but I think in just decluttering and simplifying things. My being good has translated into taking care of my family, my immediate. You know what I mean? If I can take care of their well-being, then everything else by extension becomes tolerable.
Yeah.
The financial impact of the situation notwithstanding, because we're living.
Yeah, a lot of people lost jobs, and some people it was depression and all other mental illnesses and stuff like that, which also costed the life of one of my favorite entrepreneurs, the guy called Tony Shea from the USA, the guy who started a company called Zappos. Apparently he went really crazy until like he would sometimes starve himself, sometimes he would starve himself of oxygen or something like that, and sometimes he would play with fire. I think he was really going bananas, and one day he died from the fire that I think apparently created in his house and stuff like that. So it's been crazy, like how so many people have been. So I was lucky enough, my mom came to visit just before the lockdown. And I had my nephews, my wife, my kids. So we were like a full house. We were like a full house. Like there was like 7 people.
The whole family there.
Actually, if there was something, I was somewhere subconsciously complaining of having too many people around. And not having people to drink with, because all these people in my house didn't drink beer. So, but I guess, I've got useless people. None of them are drinking beer. I had so much beer. I had so much beer in my garage because we had a situation where we had to move our beer from storage to storage, and momentarily it was in my garage. No, abanye ngibabiza.
I think you should have
But
done
during the lockdown.
something.
During the lockdown,
Right.
plus it wasn't. I mean, drinking beer is not a bad thing. Drinking alone is awkward. I'm not really used to it, but it was cool. It was cool.
I know.
So, Ngemntu, are you Xhosa?
We're not originally Xhosa, but have consequentially fallen under his Xhosa.
Yeah.
So, within that greater context.
Yeah, what's Abembo? So what's the difference?
So remember the African Sojourn, where during what the white academic context would relate as the reign of terror of King Shaka.
Yeah.
Where abanye bayali.
Yeah.
So my people took to the Nubian highlands.
Yeah.
So we ended up trudging through Greater Africa, and then saphinda sabuya. Aba Ojoda, particularly Lamampondomise, would have settled nase Swatini at some stage, and then waphinda kwadlula ke ngoku wazobuyelwa eEastern Cape.
So Amampondomise, are they part of? From what I've read about them, they are part of I hate to use this word, Khoisan, because
Yes.
It really doesn't. It's like it's a fake tribe that they created, but it doesn't really exist because there's so many tribes that we under that thing. Like I think it's a bit offensive that someone thought, okay, all these people, okay, let me just give them one name, okay,
Put them in one basket.
Yeah.
It was manufactured.
Yeah.
More than like a real thing.
Look, if you go into the clan praises, there's one eti Vuyokazi. And that's as a consequence of the intermarrying of tribes. Where one of the kings married a Khoi woman. I'm not, to this day, I can't remember her name. But mama, and then that is how that name got imbibed into Ismpondomis.
Okay.
So Vuyokazi, it means descendant of Khoi woman.
Okay.
The problem,
the
problem I have with what you just said now, Nagulete also would bring you information, historical information, facts or not, or opinion we don't know, but it makes sense if you listen to it and you're like, oh, that makes sense because it was doko, it we saying zetu, it we masiko etu. It's just that I'm very in terms of where does that all live?
Where is it archived?
Where? Because I know some of it is archived, some of it is not archived.
Yeah.
But we know about it because for you to know about that, you would have gotten it from somewhere. The knowledge that
I've got a book about Amampondomis actually. It's called Amampondomis, the story of resilience. It was
is it written by a black person?
A black person. I can't remember his name. What Kalaway but it's a black guy who wrote about it. The reason why I got the book it was because I wanted to research about the story of beer brewing amongst basically the Abattoir.
Okay.
You know, I always like I say, I would rather not use the word poison, like Abattoir to Amakosa, and basically how beer brewing came to Southern Africa and how it came to be part of our culture in terms of Utetela Madlozi and Don and Mikition and all this. So I actually got something interesting out of that because Amampondomis, they used to hunt back in the day of hunter-gathering and nomadic gathering and stuff. So they would use this chemical that they put in the bows for the bow and arrows. They shoot the animal and then they put this poison. If it goes into the animal gets like drowsy and then it falls. That poison, it was called Ichwala.
So an inebriant.
So yes, so after some time when they started brewing and they have this drink that they make and it makes people drowsy, it makes people whatever, then they called it Utwala. So basically that's basically where this name came from, Utwala.
It still doesn't answer.
So at the same time, there's this part where you say, Itolelong Twagas, I'm Debele, when we're talking about our clan, it's still Twagas. You know, so Twagas. Basically, Debele, like Twagas, Bayet, Lokuzen, whatever, Twagas. So we also do that. But obviously, all Southern African tribes kind of mixed with these people that we call Abattoir or something. Because even where I come from a place called the Cholocho. There is a special part of the district where there is Abattoir or Amasil. They also call it Amasil. Actually, the place of it is called Ngotimasil. Ngotimasil. Even up to now, there's those people. They're just like us, but some of them are a bit more light-skinned to almost reddish, partly because maybe it's a very hot part of the time and all the geographical factors and stuff like that. High cheekbones like us and everything. They are said to have been very short back in the day. So, and also that's subjective because you do not see them short.
Short in comparison to whom also.
Yeah. But then also there comes the other historic fact, which you find which maybe Xhosa people, Zulu people, back in the day, they used to be, they were said to be very tall.
Yeah.
They were very tall. They say Ushaka was almost 2 meters tall, Manecho and stuff like that. If you look at people like Nelson Mandela, he was a very tall guy who actually, and his special features are very what they call Khoisan. So you wonder where was the shortness there, and if you trace the journeys of a lot of the Nguni people from Adamawa Highlands in Cameroon coming down, they were always actually from Nubia thing, they were always said to be very tall. But right now, if you look amongst us, I think I'm the only tall guy. Tall and handsome.
You're relatively tall by South African standards.
Yes.
Modern day.
And I hate it every time I go somewhere and then you meet this other guy who's like so super tall and you look at him like, motherfucker, what are you doing? What are you doing?
You must not like Nigerian men very much.
No, I don't like them. I hate those motherfuckers. Why can you be taller than me? But what's with this tall and handsome thing? Actually, this thing.
How did you get there?
No, this thing, tall and handsome thing, like ladies.
It's tall, dark and handsome.
Miss fucking pressure, like.
Ain't that baby tall, dark and handsome?
Why?
What does that mean?
It is a prescription that we've inherited that we do not care to
who?
question because it works for us. Imagine at 1.63 meters in Hambanondo, who's my height. What are we, salt and pepper shakers? No, you are told I can
You are lovers. That's what you guys are.
I have my siblings to love. Imagine. So
what do you want?
What do you want, man?
You want a panel beater?
Yeah.
Not a bad idea, but it's not the context of this conversation.
Because it's almost like they want someone who can be able to just...
Mamela, if I'm to sit on your lap in public, people mustn't look at me like, and then, like, I don't know, it's a thing of
what?
being held.
No, but being held, it's got nothing to do with being tall and dark.
Yeah.
The dark thing, I don't know, I think...
Yeah, the dark thing, where does
I'm going to try and justify that. I'm looking for something relatively scientific.
Like, there isn't.
Okay,
but
but
we'll wait.
Let's just say we're amended to procreate.
Clear. Dark men are just handsome, clear. No two ways about it. Tall, dark and handsome, always. Two shades.
Because when you are dark.
And tall.
Why you say
and handsome.
Let the record show that came from a very reliable source. I'm just saying. If you take it down to a mandate to procreate, and I'm talking total bullshit that my feminist sisters
but no one wants dark. No one wants those dark kids.
Okay.
You've seen those babies.
Right now, no one wants a dark baby right now.
No one wants that.
Everyone wants a curly head, light skin.
Tomorrow people baby.
Everyone wants a Trevor Noah.
A biracial.
Yeah, the Trevor Noah kind of.
Yeah, everyone wants a Trevor Noah.
Yeah.
Look, I held my breath for dark-skinned babies. It never happened. I'm past that phase of my life right now, and it didn't. I'm young, but like I've played my bit. I've done my bit for humanity and procreation.
Mm-hmm.
I, of my own accord and volition, produced not 1, not 2, not 3, but 5 humans. 5 the number shortly before 6 and after 4. Yeah. So I do mean that I actually am no. There will be no tall, dark and handsome babies.
Okay.
They are yellow like me, and that's what it is. And I don't know.
I think doesn't answer the tall, dark and handsome thing.
I was trying to get to it non-Hazamiz, and you spoke about the
I want to hear your analogy of it, because I feel like you're gonna have even if it's an opinion.
It's total bullshit.
But it's still gonna be an interesting opinion.
Okay. So my whole thing is, if we look at humanity at its most primal, we're on a mandate to procreate, right?
Yeah.
And there is this assumption that the black man's always been heralded for his virility, for his strength.
Yeah.
So by extension, a darker child.
In the cotton farms.
Like I said inherited. I was trying to be euphemistic about it.
Is it then definitely mirrored or parallel to a woman to have then
childbearing hips
and childbearing hip and
but we're not complaining about that. I mean,
as are we about
no, we're not complaining about it, but we're not consistently saying to women that listen, you need to have an ass.
Yes, we're not saying that.
God is saying, listen, we'll take you as you are, but if you happen to have an ass, that'll be a plus.
That's amazing.
But women are like, so what do you want? He definitely has to be tall, dark, and handsome. Women like push it. That's the minute for women. But men don't. Men are like, listen, we'll take you with your.
So why would women go to such extents to augment their bodies if that is not something that men were voicing out?
No, they're only augmenting their bodies now because ass has been commercialized.
Yeah.
On Instagram right now, you make money from having an ass.
Yeah.
But to whose tastes does it pander?
Women
are not ogling their own asses on OnlyFans and on Instagram.
They're doing that. Women are taking pictures from behind nowadays.
Yes.
Yes.
To suit whose tastes?
For us.
Dad?
No, but I'm saying.
No, but
men
for other
are
women
not
too.
actively.
Remember nowadays,
no man is gonna say.
there's also women who date other women. I think they also like
It's
ass.
always been the case. Like,
Yes.
ass and ass is beautiful to behold.
Yeah.
That is not even the case. But I'm saying that if we posture ourselves in any way, yes, it's not for men primarily, but it's also, especially in the commercial markets, it's with the understanding that there is a consumer at the other end of the line. And it's not largely masculine in terms of that aesthetic. The ass, the tiny waist,
No, that's what I'm saying. The audience appreciates that. But what the audience is not consistently saying is saying to the woman, we want ass, we want ass. What women are saying is, we want tall, dark, and handsome. We want tall, dark, and handsome. Guys are like, oh, I'm short and light skin. Women are like,
I want to revert to not all women, but
You
I
need
am
to go watch-
certainly one who prescribes to that.
it's actually so cringy.
You also prescribe to that or
It's
tall,
an
dark, handsome.
aesthetic thing. Tall, dark, handsome, with a couple of other requirements too. But like, it's a beautiful aesthetic. Without fetish, it's not a fetish, I think, but it's a prescription that I hold dear to.
Can lean into it.
Okay, guys.
I can see how it could be viewed as one, but for me it's a personal preference, and it's also based on my own personal aesthetic. That I also have yellows about to fit. Like,
Okay.
it just
I have
doesn't.
another beer, please, guys.
Okay.
Because we are about to ask about a few things. So, the first time I met you, it was a place and you were playing with language. There's another. You were playing with language. You were
I was
poetry.
poetic.
Yes.
Doing the things of poet.
It was amazing. It was, I've always appreciated people who can do those things that I can't do, especially artistic things. So I'm not so good with language.
Okay.
Especially when I'm sober. I think so.
Which is what.
And how did you discover that? How did you? What was your journey into poetry and stuff like that? Because that's amazing. It's crazy. Life in general is we live life with talking. Talking literally gets you anywhere you want to go to. Talking gets you anything you want. Literally you have to be able to express yourself, and it's crazy that it becomes the same thing that we just need as a basic survival tool.
Sure.
Many people don't have it, and
some people can claim it
some
as a
people don't have
speciality.
it. Some people have it, and some people we even pay for it. We pay to go listen to poets. We listen to comedians, because comedians are also people who have that ability to have language and also ability to analyze things and stuff like that. Musicians, I think, the same. How does one get to be there and get to understand that and get to understand that about themselves, to say, it's me language.
Well, there is a very hypothetical and very temperamental space, depending on where you view yourself from. But how it started for me was I've always written. I've always had voices in my head, which for a greater part of my childhood, I assumed to be present within every other kid's head. Apparently not. And that later revealed itself to be other things and presences and influences. But it stemmed from that.
Well, other things.
And
Okay.
Someone.
Okay.
So I think for me it primarily stems from being very attuned to a voice and presence that dictates something that urgently needs to be documented. But also being very blasé about it, in that you hear it so clearly. Writing it does not feel like creating. It feels like tuning into something, and it feels like transference more than anything.
Yeah.
So I might as well have been transcribing something Uletu was saying to me, like word for word, but often not catching up to, with a lot of room for, I don't know, artistic license whilst doing that. So that's where it started for me, from writing the things that were in my head and the very audible things that were in my head too. Trying to give them voice through writing, and finding that, so we had a little bookcase at home. My dad was a bit of an aspiring bibliophile, not so much from an educated background, but he had a passion for languages, he had a passion for books and for reading.
Okay.
Much so that by the time I was probably 12, I'd read every book in the house. And it started extending to every time Abuya, he's gonna either bring me a magazine until I got bored of those, bring me a book. And I think at 9, I'd written a thing, Eskoleni, as part of, I think they wanted compositions, but the teacher pointed out that the thing that I'd written was a poem, and apparently that was a good thing.
Okay.
So having that recognized and celebrated from that early, having my dad constantly trying to show off, look what she wrote every time I visit her workplace, kind of instilled the confidence that this thing that I do that makes me an oddball amongst my peers is actually something that is of some value, although I did not know what at that stage.
Okay.
And later on in high school, you know, being part of the debating club and joining other activities that relied solely on my power of orature, I think that would have instilled the sense of confidence in this as something of value beyond a party trick, beyond the thing that I do also in order to process whatever I was going through.
Okay.
So I grew up a very alienated child, but for the voices in my head as well, which I befriended.
That's amazing. So you also mentioned your father. My father was this quiet guy. Like we would exchange 15 words with my father in a week.
That's
like literally
that's the nature of what the male has been portrayed in our culture.
The silent
no,
not silent to say, but when they speak, they are the ones that are bringing the hammer down.
He wasn't that guy.
Bringing wisdom. You can't just be like.
So they rarely speak, but when they do, it has to be monumental.
Yes, it's like I speak when I really have to.
Yeah, that's a lot of pressure.
Yeah, there's always been that pressure because I need to not be loose and funny. That's what they took to their friends and everything. Then they dancing or whatever at home. Because I am the, what do you call this? I'm the strict of the house. The mother can love, can whatever, will love you, will nurture, will whatever, will shout, whatever. But when there needs to be a hammer, I need to say, now I can't do that if
you're always bluffing.
Yesterday I was laughing with you. Then today I'm like, so you have to maintain. You basically need to be in. You need to stay in your role. You need to stay in character all the time, and that's how.
Doesn't that make masculinity heavy, though?
That's what we're unshackling.
It's heavy. It's heavy, and you guys don't understand that. So that's what we will get there. To talk about masculinity, we definitely get there. So. From what you're saying, the one thing that I took away actually from my dad is like, I don't know. So they also had some beliefs, African beliefs. My fingernails, they sometimes have these white spots. You know, they just grow sometimes, and then sometimes they are out, sometimes they are there. And just on them. No, I don't have them now. In our culture, it says it's something that shows that you have talent. You're going to be a great person.
Look at you.
So my father would always show his friends, because my father didn't have money. You know, he was this guy was just general worker in a cardboard box factory. He didn't have much of a voice. He wasn't that guy who goes into the place and around Mr. Chapo is there. You know, no, he wasn't that guy. He didn't have a car, he didn't have a bicycle, he was just this guy. you know. And then we go to these friends, and these friends are, some of them will come to Babu Swing. Swing was like the man, you know, and thing. You know, and sometimes we are later at don't worry. And so he leaves them. And my father would be afraid of even asking who would swing to drop us, because you know, I think those days maybe the whole township will have like 20 cars. Yeah, you know, literally.
And his was the flashiest.
And a car per street.
So that was the thing. And but every time we used to see something in me, and my father is like, yeah, I want Fanamlo is gonna be big. You know, all your kids are gonna see my child on TV. You know, he would say that, and I remember how much confidence that gave me, how much pride. You know, next time I'm at school, maybe sometime there's other kids' playground and stuff like that. Everyone is running and stuff like that, and they stand somewhere there, and I look at all these motherfuckers are going to see me on TV one day.
Because we should have
all of you, because my father told me so. You know, and I'm like. So I'm listening to you saying that about your father. How much did that do to shape your life?
I think that was the exact bedrock that I formulated my self-perception. Despite everything else in the world that would have later come up to contest that, there was always that I was rooted in. That there man has assured me, not only through his constant presence throughout my journey, like my dad would be in the front row of a public speaking Olympiad. And so that's my daughter, like clapping loud as fuck. So after we came in like this dilapidated Chev that made me cringe when it was parked in front of everyone. But come the time that I would be in front of audiences, delivering speeches and debates, my dad was there on some, that is my progeny right there. You know what I mean?
No, rare that is.
That's beautiful.
We go through our schooling career in these multiracial schools and doing well and excelling and being gifted, and we never really get to experience that. Like it's such a short, it's like a very minute percentage of us that actually like really have to experience that. And besides anything that you're doing, the importance of just your umzali just being there. You can be losing, you cannot win. Just the fact that they literally does so
but
much.
Was your father in your life? Was your father active?
So I come from a single parent, right? And when we were talking about this role thing, which is something I was going to bring while you guys finish this point, was that it is so weird that my mother, because she was a single parent to two boys, and not just two boys, two naughty boys who are larger than life. Right? And very strong and confident in whatever.
Listen to the self-branding.
She really had to be the man.
So
my mother, this thing we were talking about fathers are like strict. Don't say a lot of words because I'm the strict. My mother had to be strict.
My mothers just give you one look.
As much as she wanted to whatever, to be like, just, be a mother nurture, she couldn't, because she was like, I'm also the one that's disciplining these kids. So she was like, but it was so beautiful as she grew and we grew, she had to let go of that role because the discipline was there. She'd done her job and she could just be a mother and just be mushy and and just love and just whatever. That was interesting to see.
You're making me emotional. You're reminding me of the Muffins. What is it? That song, Msebenzi.
Oh yes. But
so my mom was a disciplinary one. My dad was this guy was just a quiet most of the time. You'll be doing things and then he's like watching you, and then once in a while he just smiles to himself and then he goes into his bedroom. Sometimes he's going there to sleep, or sometimes just comes out with his jacket. Boy.
Thank you for clarity.
So that's an amazing thing. Like my thing, it was crazy. Also, that's another thing that I'm looking at the dynamics of marriage then and now. Now you can't just leave your wife and say,
Are you not seeing that part of him in you now with your kids, or have you completely said, listen, that's not what I'm going to be. I'm going to be a different, sort of person in terms of my household and how I bring it up.
He raised 12 kids. I have one daughter who literally demands things, not even to tell her mom. I have to tell her where I'm going.
Yes.
What time I'm coming back.
Yeah.
Why am I going so late? All these other things. So the dynamics are so different. I'm always out. Obviously, I'm always at work most of the times, and then I come back home and I chill. And then you try to do that balancing thing where you try to be at home, you try to do whatever. It's quite a difficult game. And literally yesterday, I was doing a bit of a thinking about it. Like there's this part of our lives we go to school to learn about our careers of choice or sometimes not choice, and you learn about this and that, everything. There's always small workshops at work to help you adjust to this and what. But then the biggest part of our lives, which is like our family and relationships,
that's where a lot of learning
and stuff like
happens.
that, we do not get to learn anything. You're like, no, dive in the browser, funda phakathi.
Happens by default.
So funda phakathi. So it's the same thing from where you have a girlfriend, you just see this person, nice ass if you're the ass guy, like you.
Yes.
Or you're the tall, dark and handsome, like hair, and that's all that you know.
And stuff in between.
From there on, and usually all that diminishes after the first sexual encounter. The big bumps no longer mean anything. But you now have this person. You have promised so much.
Now you need to.
You've promised so much. No, I did. Yeah, I did promise girls a lot because girls have this habit of they know what you want, but they want you to make a promise before you get it. And you're a young man, you're fucking hungry, you want these things so much, and you're like, motherfucker, any contract, bring it, I'll sign.
As long as
you do that, and then you're stuck. Then there's a part of you that you grew up in a place where you were taught accountability. You now have signed, and you now have to try and stick into it.
Live up to your end.
Because you promised.
Yeah.
And you are totally clueless. You're totally clueless. And every time I'm having conversations with my gents over a beer and stuff like that, the moment one guy says, "Hey, brah, injani from anything," I'm like, "Hey, I only cry in the face," And that's where you see Uti song bra sianya bra, and you go on the streets, like even Twitter, you anything that says bra everyone
is not the primary problem. The fact that men, or rather young boys, were raised to look at sex as something that's procured from women, as opposed to this thing that can be mutually enjoyed.
It's also the same thing the other way around, when women think sex is something they give to men.
Yes, like that concept. But it's not a mutual thing.
It's
now you have to go get it and lie with things or A, B, and C.
Yeah.
Now in order to get it is an
exactly. Because there was a thing, I think we were socialized the wrong way, or the way we're socialized, or we're prepared. We're not prepared for the life that we're living now. We were not prepared for the era of sexual liberation.
Funny that we have to revert to looking at it that way, because in some of our cultures, maybe more pre-ancient than modern day, in some of our cultures, women and young men were groomed into what their sexual roles would be within the relationship. In that there are cultures where women are taught, like labial pulling, they're taught to pull their labia. But it's also been contorted with the end game of knowing how to please a man. Imagine if that was done, but also for her own gratification, as opposed to one day uzoshada and obaba fanele, A, B, and Z.
Fanele enjoy. Even not like
enjoy. You know, that's what's wrong. That's what's always been wrong with it. In that it's always been postured towards male gratification and not as something that brings two people together. It's why we at Injani Fro A right.
Exactly. Like I suppose
for me, the exes, yeah, when it comes to relationship, got moved from the relationship, meaning two people getting to know each other, meaning their backgrounds, who they are, their energies, spirituality, and everything, and that access got moved to sex.
Yeah.
That's the problem.
Yeah.
Because sex is an act. Yes, it's spiritually connected and whatever, but it's merely a byproduct of the relationship. So we move the access to banana. No. You don't actually have to get to know this human being and whatever. Does she even ask, do you get aroused when you see her? Cool. What do you have to do to make sure that you do actually have sex with her? Oh, well, maybe she wants Savannah. Cool. Here's a six-pack of Savannah. She's like, ooh, make that two. And you would get the two, like, okay, cool, let's do this thing. Cool, that's it.
Yeah.
So we took that element of it, and that access got moved from that. And back in the day, the access was on the relationship. And then after, because the byproduct of sex is that it produces human beings that need to exist in a world. And again, we can't just produce human being to exist in a world that doesn't exist. Because if I meet you at Rand's and I go and we have sex and you produce human being, we don't have a world together.
Yeah.
I don't know you.
Yeah.
So that's basically the problem. That's what I saw. What the problem is with relationships now, and that's why it was new. Because when we initially meet Abandu, it's a little bit more leaned on the instead of trying to create meaningful and spiritual connections more than anything else.
But if you also look at how, like I have a story, how my father was conceived. My grandmother, that's back in the day. You know, this is the era that you say that it was relationships. So it was also not maybe, or maybe it was relationships in a greater context, not for two individuals, but for two families or two villages or something like that. And there was this girl who was sacrificed to be the bridge of these two relationships that these two big families want to have. You know, so my grandmother was sent to go bear kids for her aunt, Ochabang. I think she was 16 years old. And my grandfather was an old man who had kids. Some of his kids are literally the same age as my father. So she was sent there to go bear kids for her aunt. And she did bear kids. And not long after that, my grandfather passed. Then to free her to go get married. They freed her, she went on to have relationships everywhere, she got married somewhere else. But there was this relationship that created my father, which was not a relationship. It was not 16-year-old girl with a 70-year-old man who has two other wives and many other kids already, and you to get the concept. Just like
which is why I have a problem with this utopic viewpoint of what the past was like, and back in the olden days, in the days of our grandfathers and grandmothers, and how people tend to idealize that as when things were proper. In that we're not calling ourselves to account on the things that were fundamentally wrong back then, albeit allowed by the context of the day. Because had somebody said this is bullshit, somebody would have probably accounted for the fact that this is a human being and not chattel that can just be transported from one place to another to fulfill a biological function.
But
they
for me is still on the relationship, because it's not saying go and just go bear kids.
That's exactly what.
There's worlds that are created and we are trying to actually create even a bigger world, which is what humanity exists in.
At the expense of the autonomy of
but
the
thing
individual.
is, so for me, I'm like, would I rather that, right? Or meeting someone overnight, and I buy you a bottle of Hennessy and you win whatever, because you're free and you would like to do anything that you want to do with your body, and then we make a child, and that child has got no world to live in, and then you're stuck with it as a single parent with no world to exist in. Which one is for me the right thing?
So I'm
talking about like
we live in a world that's pro-choice. So the choice one, the Hennessy one.
I'm saying that I'm looking at the choice thing now.
Yeah.
And I'm not for any one of them. It's just it's a thing that I constantly think about. I'm like, hey, cool. So the two communities, old people, not talking about kids here. These are people that sat down and thought about this thing, meaning that it was thought about, and a decision was made, not by one person, by a collective of people that said, hey, cool, we think collectively that there's a world for this and we can create this world, and this is a responsible thing to do, because what we're trying to do, we're trying to bridge these two families. By bridging two families, we're creating a world, a bigger world, so that no child goes unparented, right?
Well, they still.
But now, children are unparented because of choice. Because I can decide to go and sleep with anyone, and then I'm now pregnant, and then the father I probably don't know, or maybe, and I'm talking from personal experiences, I was drunk and I decided, like, I'm going to sleep with like 4 or 5 guys, and then I don't even know which one the father is. And then that child, I have to raise that child now, as bad as I am, in that difficulty, because I've got choice, which is fine, you should as a human being. So how do we meet these two worlds? What is the perfect world?
A world where each individual retains their autonomy while still having the option to opt into the bigger picture of whatever ecosystem one may or may not want to partake in. Because if you then phrase it in terms of, look what has happened as a consequence of you having choice, you're automatically leaning in favor of a world where choice is optional, which comes with its own dangers. So
talking about choice, there's a big story right now, a story of choice with the British royal family. You know, I want to engage on that. So I saw this guy chooses to have a black woman. The British royal family, I think, chooses to maintain a certain type of genes and whatever, and the culture and all these other things, and now he's becoming kind of an outcast. I didn't really follow the story, but I know I heard something like the lady Megan something.
That girl, Malcolm, something like that.
Yeah, that Megan was saying Gucci, she had so much pressure. There was a lot of character assassination on her, and she also had even suicidal thoughts and what. And now there are people that are saying that Diana, she almost did the same thing. She tried to have a choice where she is in a framework of a bigger picture, which is a picture of the royalty, the picture of the British crown,
and everything that she's brought
and they are custodians of the crown, so they can't think as individuals, So now it's crazy because if you look at it as in the olden context, even myself, I think that boy and that Megan don't bayasanya too much. If I was the king, I wasn't going to allow it. Crocodiles, but but now there is this context of choices of the modern world
versus tradition.
But
everything.
But so there is this modern world where we're talking about choices, rights, and everything, but still the British royalty is still a powerful entity. It's still a very influential entity. So there's a huge conflict there.
I'm actually exhausted that we're even framing our thoughts like within that perspective of those impositions of what the British are doing, and that's all that makes.
No, it's not only them. I'm saying this.
Royalty.
Because I'm saying my grandfather, even me, that's why I used my father earlier on. My grandfather was a rich guy, and in that context back then, and for them to keep the whole thing, they needed him to have all these other kids. So my grandmother was the sacrifice, and right now I benefited from that sacrifice.
Oh, you did?
I did. I'm here because of that sacrifice.
Oh, you did not?
Yes.
You benefited from that?
I benefited from my grandmother.
Oh, so there was some good out of that, hey?
There was.
Okay.
The whole good looks.
Okay.
The whole good looks.
I beg to differ. Like, not.
I wasn't going to be born.
I'm not writing you off. I'm not writing you off.
I wasn't going to be born. What are you saying? Yeah.
Would have lived. I'm not writing you off.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is, nah. From a position of like an indigenous knowledge systems practitioner, from a position of a healer, somebody who deals with people from a spiritual level, who deals with families and lineages. I think that is the one thing that I've made it my propaganda, that our families need cleansing, because multitudes of women have gone through such acts of oppression within our families in order for our progeny to progress to where we are right now.
Yeah.
That there are these women throughout the ages who have been crying, who have been silenced within the oppression, whose oppression has been normalized and dubbed culture. And that is one of the things that I feel like need to be rectified in that whether you like it or not.
I want to go like Zach said. No,
if you're going deep, so you were trying to rectify the multitude that were oppressed, right? What about the multitudes of children that are born now?
Now, Nyagos, I'm with you.
Now, if you look at the numbers, we've got more children that are born now who don't know what their lineage is. Because of the savannah, because of the choice, when I decided when I'm going to be a hoe, and I don't know whatever.
What is a hoe and how do we define
a hoe? Is recklessly sleeping with men.
All his life.
Oh, so it's...
And with unprotected sex. So if you sleep with 4 men having unprotected sex and you get pregnant, you don't know which one got you pregnant.
Can we get away from this vilifying the feminine within the sexual?
No. It's not vilifying.
Wait.
Okay, so this comes from everyone around me, right? Yeah. Everyone around me is literally, and I'm talking about young women, is literally following the exact same path. And I'm like, how? Because there's definitely something that's wrong that's happening here with this pro-choice thing. No one literally.
I'm flabbergasted that you think the problem is there though, as opposed to within the actual roots of the ecosystem and how sexual exchanges are framed.
Let me take you back. To what you said. I'll come back there. I'll definitely will. You said something that you believe that our people need to be cleansed because there's a lot of all these crying women that basically that were denied choices and they were put in these places and stuff like that, my grandmother and all these people. Okay, so there is also, on the other hand, men who did have the same things. Like a lot of men in royalty, simply. I think was it who?
Botanic.
That were not rightfully given.
I can't remember. I think in the Zulu culture, I think it was Senzanga Kona. It was somebody else.
In my head,
oh yes, Senzanga Kona. He fell in love with Unandi. That was his woman of choice. But Unandi was not the choice of the royal family. And hence Ushaga ended up being an outcast and all these other things. And so Ushaga was treated like a side chick, like he wasn't. So it happened to men too. Those times, and during those times, it was, should we call it, for the greater good, because that's what the people believed was what they wanted. how does this whole thing get to be balanced between all people? Because it surely wasn't just women or just men. It was a societal thing. And during those days, maybe it was functional. Maybe the crisis was not documented. Where do you stand, Vuyokazi?
I think the reason why I'm insistent on pointing it to be to the detriment of women more than men is because it's women that are procured into marriage. Ndimoshiya ikhaya lami kuthiwe ndiyokwandisa umzi wakwaShabavu. You know what I mean? To the point where back in the day, I'd have had little say as to whether or not ndiyakwaShabangu or ndiyakwaMaseko. If relations are favorable between my family nabakwaShabangu, then like it or not, Vuyo uyale ungandiphikisi nomtatako. And that's the end of that.
Yeah, even it was the same with boys. Utata boy, we're excited, we're talking about ngutholela umfazi. Namhlanje ngithetha noBakuMaseko, ayintombi yakhe lana awuso yashada yona. And you can't say nothing. You know, because Babako, his vision is to have blood yake being in this lineage with these people who are close to his thing. Obviously, it was usually the older men who were like the fathers who made decisions for everyone here, because they owned the lineage and they had basically the responsibility, if they thought it was, or the power to let it go in any which way they wanted.
I love that you said the older men and not so much the older women is what I've been trying to propagate.
Yes.
That when you still had, you could at whim decide to actually nufuni tata intombi yakwanhlapho yothwala umntana abantu elder esiya to the river to fetch water, and she would have no say but have to contend with whatever situation she finds herself in, is what I speak to having to cleanse and having to rectify within our bloodlines. Not disregarding the fact that mhlawumbe bamshadisa nomntana abantu ebengamfuni, but what I'm saying is oftentimes it was her that had to leave her world and her ecosystem to join this family because it was mandated by the will of the older men that you pointed out within her bloodline. And how the suppression
cleansing.
So
Cleansing what? Okay, take me through how you cleanse that.
Okay, so we're dealing with the inheritance of generational trauma is what I'm speaking to right now. Let me finish. The inheritance of generational trauma is why you'll find that a lot of us, Abattoir, and that there is an ancestor who is disgruntled with this or that thing that needs to be rectified in order to fix the hemorrhages within Ikaya El. Not necessarily that uzahamba yonyanga abantu bangaphandle, but because there are things ezingazange zihambe kakuhle, like historically apha ekhaya is what you're now charged with custodianship of. Fanele uyolungisa umsamo wakini. And a lot of that deals with the reclamation of lost heritages and lost names and lost relations within your family. Then mhlawumbe abanye bakini bahamba baye eMozambique and you no longer have a connection with those bloodlines, is what you are now the intermediary that is charged with fixing. And a lot of what I'm saying my journey involves is the cleansing of the feminine part of our bloodlines. First of all, what was Tuti? And a lot of what you're echoing out are the names pre-ancient of all Baba again, not the women. You know what I mean? See, I choose to but that name does not show up anyway. In these legacies is what I'm saying. There is a need to research within our bloodlines and cleanse. Because a lot of it was inflected. No 16-year-old child said,
it's very family based. It's not culturally based. Ekaya.
How families are what form?
Ekaya, the people that mama is Ikala that we actually go deeper and go and fetch to whatever, because Likala that actually bore us and and that have actually protected us.
But it's the men. It's the men amongst us. It's not the women.
Huh?
What she's saying is that even when maybe Tetela Amadozekala or Mama, the people that we're talking about is the men amongst ngabo malume bakho.
No,
that's why.
That's what I'm saying. It's very family based.
Remember.
No, umam jwaga.
Ujwaga lo nimbiza yathiwe ngayo.
Umam jwaga uzalwa ngabani?
Ujwaga.
Because mawusu suthe umam jwaga yena usezala kwenyindlu engasayo leya le line.
Umakhulu umamjwaga uzalwa ngutata ujwaga.
Utata ke kasoba komama.
Umam jwaga utshatele emazizini. Yena umjwaga. Because utata ke wayengujwaga.
Kodwa wena abantu.
But eyintombi umama wakhe ngubani bani. So when you're praising someone, you take both sides. That's how we do it.
No, you're missing it.
Yes.
Totally.
When I am praising myself, ndibiza ojola bakulo tata, ndibize ombathane bakulo mama. But even in calling out ombathane bakulo mama, the names that come out of that are the names of my male progenitors from that side.
From that side. Yeah.
Umbathane, like if I were to line them up for you, you know what I mean? Umbathane.
So how do you change that?
That is what I'm saying, Uti. From here on, then for me, it becomes.
And how is that trauma?
Silencing, erasure.
No, but the thing is, the reason that structures like that is not because of who gives lineage.
No, hold it.
Who gives lineage?
In that context, who gives lineage?
The cleansing that needs to be done to appease the souls of the women that who basically have been wronged in our past, in our lineages and stuff like that. I think I've had some time where someone goes ebantwini and then they say, no, yina ukho lapha you know, ongajabulanga because kulento enje mhlawumbe umuntu okhona akazange lotshole nokulotshola and stuff like that.
There's marital rape, there's a lot of things that went down, unnamed, is what I'm speaking to when I speak of cleansing. I'm speaking not only of the naming of the multiple atrocities that women would have gone through that were normalized back then, that we now, in hindsight, with the benefit of years and years of retrospect, are able to see as oppressive. The things that you would speak out against now and not allow to happen to your daughter are things that were normalized for your great-great-grandmother. And how dare you sit content in knowing that, in thinking that she's happy with them, that those things have happened to her. How dare you not see then the parallels between what's happening now, especially with how women have been downgraded socially, and the things that happened to women then, and that surely set precedents for how we view and treat women now. And the position that men tend to assume for themselves within the social strata is surely consequential to the fact that and life goes on. How's it different from a man who sees me in my miniskirt thinking actually unans? And
So when is ugogo is Sangom, have you encountered a situation where someone comes to consult you and you have this person who has such experiences who needs to be appeased and stuff like that?
I know that from my own bloodline. I'm dealing with that in my own bloodline. And having to appease a feminine voice that was repressed, that is now crying for a sense of reclamation of what was taken away from her. Be it in terms of property, especially in terms of property. That if there was social justice was meant to have been inherited by this woman, but because she was born a girl child, and as a consequence, because our dispossession goes beyond
still today.
As much as our dispossession as black people can be attributed largely to apartheid and colonization, there's also a lot of that happened to feminine bodies within the cultural space. You know what I mean? In that, I'm taking it back to, I'll show you the
someone losing their husband and then they have to now.
If Agafunu Chata with the younger brother, she's going to be excommunicated from this family with everything that she would have helped accrue within this bloodline. Because he married that girl from a rich family. But now all of a sudden, it's like the thing that happens in where your family will come, like and claim the microwave and the car and the business. They don't even pass it down to your young brother anymore. Also, it happens like modern day. So how do we not see that those things are linked is what I'm starting to question right now. Is what I'm wanting us to account for as people who've been charged with carrying forth these bloodlines, and people who've been charged with creating a way forward. And that a part of a culture being progressive is having to admit when the practices that we've inherited no longer serve us. Like Abattoir, but there are people that are of the Abattoir culture, but have somehow decided the scarification no longer suits them. Aesthetically, it's no longer relevant to what's happening now. So how do we then retain what is at the core of those practices and those beliefs and transpose them into a way that is humane and in line with human rights namhlanje and how we live? And that we're not being asked to regurgitate the practices of the people of ancient. Like, I'm sorry, no. Like, I walk with Ogogo, for instance, but whatever practices she used to like uphold back in the day are things that I can be seen to imbibe from time to time, just being symptomatic of the fact that but I'm not obligated to. I can take a lot of what is good from what she gives me, what she passes on to me, and transpose it into how I live and how I function in this world. But part of my role, I feel, is naming the injustices that women have suffered and trying to then, in creating a clean slate and a way forward, and trying to address those and redress those things on a psychological level, but also on a generational level in terms of what is imbibed psychically. If Obaba Mhlambi died from a car accident, it should come as a little surprise that 3 generations down the line, like because they inherited that trauma. So it's those things for me.
So you believe in reincarnation, spirits?
We're really heading there. Shall I now tell you that I've been a 7-year-old coy boy at some stage? We can head there, but I was talking from a very close perspective.
Can we
have
go
a sip
there?
of your drink.
Okay, I will have a sip.
I'm gonna think. I know. I mean, this is a deep one.
I don't think, can it be accommodated within this 30 minutes?
No. Let's have it. Let's have it.
You'd have to take him through.
No. Sean, Ima, let's have it. If it's flowing, it's flowing. Let's let it flow. So please,
yes, I do believe in reincarnation. I do believe that the body is but a vessel for soul. Which is something more infinite, something that can just be passed on from one vessel to another. And this is not the first time that...
You can think it's
no, it's not someone from England. So yes, I believe that I have existed prior to existing in this body. I've met other people that I have encountered in my previous existences.
So
I have my young daughter telling me of her own past life, so it is something that I embrace.
Can you tell me about your experience and your daughters? That's interesting.
For me, it's coming visions. And I'm not speaking of Ogogo that I walk with, whose spirit I also house in my body, you know what I mean, at different times when she needs to do the work that she needs to do. I'm speaking of my own presence as soul, as something infinite, having been vested in another body vessel. Yes, I have experienced that. I've had flashbacks of those experiences, and at some stage I was a 7-year-old boy dancing around the fire in the Karoo somewhere and very happy. But also being able to recognize that this is me, but not the me who is clad in this flesh, or this woman who is Vuyokazi by name.
And how did that treat you?
It wasn't something alarming. It was something that you meet with an understanding. Like, there is no way that could not have been me. You know what I mean?
And your daughter?
My daughter, when she was 3, she would insist that her name is not Musani. She told us her name and surname that we haven't been able to trace, but the funny thing is the surname belongs to another family that is part of our relatives.
Oh, wow.
So she would dispute it. I'm not at liberty to disclose that name for whatever ramifications it was. So for the longest time, she still remembers it.
Because I've heard something like that with my daughter. Sometimes she just says, she used to do whatever. She has said something like that. And also, we did watch some something on
Those
TV,
documentaries,
those documentaries.
The white child who was a black woman.
Yes, those kids. I'm like, okay, this is fascinating and scary at the same time.
It's always scary because we've been alienated from our truth. We've been forced to view the timeline of human existence as something that's very linear.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Whereas our own cultures acknowledge like the vastness of the space-time continuum, that we exist not only as what we are currently. That's why even in our languaging, there's no way of differentiating between this and the other realm. That's just not about that. You look at someone, if you're a disbeliever, and think, whilst in that moment in time, they're addressing a presence that they can identify as being within their proximity, whether or not it is cleared in the flesh. You know what I mean? And what happens to those presences once they've forgone the flesh is what we then need to start investigating and taking ownership of. And surely, is what I'm inclined to believe. And yeah, I've experienced it within myself, I've experienced it within, like I said, my daughter.
Yeah.
And it's something beautiful and something very affirmative in terms of the continuum of our cycles of life. And then in that it sort of takes off the edge and the pressure of feeling like, shit, now 38 to go, I only probably have another 38 years, and once this timeline is finished, whatever it is that I set out to do in this world, if I'm the achiever, and that then why do we have these people that call out to us from the beyond, that then say, in order to continue the work that I was not able to finish.
Yeah.
So a lot of them roam, a lot of them inhabit other bodies.
So you are almost what I would call a traditionalist, a spiritualist, and then you also an educated black woman.
I'm not an educated black woman.
You are an educated black woman.
I'm a university graduate. I'm not educated.
Being in university means you're educated. Don't worry. But then, okay, you also were incorporated one time in your life.
Incorporated? How so?
No, in corporate things like.
Yes, I did the things of Wamlung. Yes.
Yeah, Wamlung. Yeah. Yes, and how was that for you and your kind of thinking, your spirituality and wholesome journey?
Look, I've lived a lot of my life feeling like the odd one out. Like even at my most compliant, something about me stuck out like a sore thumb.
Yeah.
So even when I would tuck in my tail, something in me would piss off someone of authority into feeling like I was somehow non-compliant. You know what I mean? So having to contend with that, having to play into the contortionist act of fitting into the mold of what is expected, and having thoughts and beliefs that are very contrary, is something that I eventually found too stifling to live up to.
Yeah.
So yes, the paycheck at the end of the month was something to look forward to, but at the expense of something in me that felt like it was slowly but surely dying out. So at some stage it stopped working for me. I just walked away from work on my way to work and just walked until I found myself at an arts college. And somehow that felt like home. So life is good. So is the beer.
So yeah, beer is great. Actually, beer is great. Everything is quite these days. Like it's definitely not as. I wouldn't look at beating as something commercial. Do you do it for commercial purposes, or you get something out of it besides having to sell some of it?
What I get out of it is a meditative vacuum, and that I am fun employed. I am an artist.
Yeah.
It's during lockdown. I have loads and loads of issues, as has come up in the podcast, that I can't afford therapy for. So it's that space where I get to commune with, with my higher self, and to reach out to something beyond the immediate. So for that reason, it serves a purpose either than commercial, but it's very much something that I do for subsistence, and that I make beaded jewelry that I sell.
Okay.
And I'm not so much invested in traditional jewelry, in that, again, me having to conform to, normative molds doesn't work.
So if someone has to call you now, they can buy some of your beads?
Someone can call me and buy some of my earrings, my necklaces and things, but what I'm not really into is creating traditional beadwear. something in me malfunctions.
So for some of you guys who like beads, we're gonna put in a Vuyokazi la, so you can call her and you can buy some of her beadwork. She's always clad in all those, and it's beautiful. I like it. Yeah.
Thank you, Siyabonga.
Okay, cool. So as for food, which is one thing that we always ask people, what's your favorite food? What and why?
Me, I'm a person of lentil curry. Before I came here, I was craving lentil curry but didn't want to cook. So everything's spicy. Like there's an Asiatic palate somewhere that wants things that are hot and spicy.
Okay.
And it's like the thing that's short circuits within our own traditional foods is that I'm vegetarian, borderline vegan, but for my love of cheese.
Yeah.
So black people will look at you like, okay, you're gonna have the gravy here if you're not gonna eat the meat. So yeah, our traditional foods seldom embrace that. They seldom cater to that.
Yeah.
But hey, I'll have that in the greater scheme of things. I'll have I'll have roast potato, but yeah.
Okay, so this most interesting recipe that I just came up with. In this show, we try to make a beer for everyone who comes here.
Yeah.
So we would like to make a lentil curry beer. I don't know how that's gonna come.
My excitement is loading. It's coming. It's coming.
Yeah,
Do you know what you could do if you're trying to make a beer? So I have this random thing. My relationship with beer. Let's take it back. My dad used to drink a lot of beer, and apparently I was inclined towards it as a child. That I'm said to have cried for beer, but we had an uncle who came to live with us. So beer to me, in my little brain at that time, was a drinkamaloo. So apparently I'd wake up in the middle of the night and cry for a drinkamaloo. Yes. Grew up to despise alcohol, having seen the impact of it in everything that we see. But also ekaya de tavern growing up. So it was always an anomaly, like this girl was a tavern and I started drinking on the day that they did my ceremony. Was the first time I touched alcohol. Utshwala besintu is like, I'm just saying, like commercial alcohol, beer. And I reacquainted ourselves that time only. And randomly, I think a year back, I just craved milk stout. I hadn't drank milk stout. In a relationship with it, but like I desperately wanted milk stout.
We have a milk stout actually.
That's why I was taking you. That if it's anything that has those kind of hard wooden smoked flavors like stout.
We have, but we can create one for you right now.
I get.
But Bra,
that's what you can create.
Can you pour just one can of black honey in the thing?
Well, that's part of what we do here.
Yeah.
Is
but the milk stout is an easy thing. So we have it, but we will also try. I'm so intrigued by lentil because I love lentil soup. I have a friend of mine who grew up in the UK, but with the Jamaican community. So there's this Caribbean lentil soup. So he taught me how to make that, and we. So
you're gonna infuse that somehow into.
No, I always drink that. I always eat that. Drink. Sorry. So I always cook that lentil soup, and I love lentils. So I will try. There's something so nice and safe about lentils. So I'll make something with lentils for you. Yeah, definitely. I think it'll be exciting thing. So here's a milk stout for you. This one we did with Devil's Peak Brewing Company. This was a collab between Devil's Peak and Ukamba Beer Works. It's called the Black Honey. You should enjoy that.
I'm there already.
Yeah. You're there already, yeah.
I
was going to ask you something. I was going to ask something.
Beautiful.
Are you a feminist?
I have to be. If I'm a woman in this world, I see no other way of existing in this world.
You have to be.
I have to.
As a woman.
As a woman in this world, contending with the position that women have been relegated to.
Yeah.
I'd be damned not to be.
But what is feminism? Because it's been describe in so many words. I've read, I think, some books by Bell Hooks. I think I own what you call this. We should all be feminists. Chimamanda Ngozi. Bell Hooks, I can't remember which one, but it's also about feminism and stuff like that. But there is, and also I've listened to podcasts. There's so many schools of thoughts around feminism that leaves a lot of the people around it a bit divided.
Okay. Divided, alienated. I think that's the result.
And you go to certain spaces. I'm like, because I was raised by my mom. I'm like mama's born, you know. So I gravitated towards those kind of things. You know, Abattoir and all that. And I generally love women. You know, they've served me from many situations in my life. You know, like I think. You know,
this is good.
Yeah, that's good. No, we only make good beer. Unfortunately, even if we try to make bad beer, we fail.
Modesty is an African.
No.
No, this is excellent.
They say it ain't arrogance if you can back it. You know, so that's the thing. So and you get to certain spaces and you talk to certain people in the feminist space.
Yeah.
There are some that pull and there are some that push. And where are you there, and what's your diagnosis of the whole thing?
Look, my whole thing is, my feminism is divorced from the stronghold of academia, in that I recognize how alienating that is.
Yeah.
In that if you're not one with the jargon, if you haven't read the books, if you're not as cogent and prolific in voicing what it is that your standpoint is, then mhlawumbe wena you're a feminist light, as opposed to Smang who's read all the books, who's done gender studies at UCT, who has an MA in, I don't know, human rights and everything else that, you know, facilitates that kind of discourse.
Yeah.
Then there tends to be a rift, there tends to be a sense of classism between nina bafundileyo and nina mhlambi that if it was better packaged, like the philosophies would resonate with.
Yeah.
But ke mhlawumbi ubufana noVuyokazi wagqibela was-standard 10 esikolweni waqhubekeka nobomi and are somewhat inclined to that but intimidated by the jargon.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I think that's the biggest barrier, especially for women. That's why for me I'm like, if we were to strip it bare of like all those encumbrances and take it to grassroots, like at its most fundamental level, it is a disgruntlement with a societal system, that puts women at the receiving end of injustice. And as a woman, I cannot, in my good mind, like contend to injustice, whether or not it happens to me or another woman. Like for as long as there's inequity between what's afforded to my male counterpart and myself, I'll forever brand myself a feminist until that's rectified. For as long as kukho abantwana emakhaya basathwalwayo ngo-2021 bayotshatiswa namadoda amadala bengafuni, I will forever see it as my duty to speak against that. And if that puts me in the box that is branded feminist and not the other thing, then I'll happily contend with being called that. But I'm a lot of other things as well. But yes, I am a person who believes in equality, who believes in justice for women. And if within the schematics of language and its schisms, I'm called a feminist, indeed feminist. It's something I can't shy away from. But it's also something that I want to recognize. Actually, how dare I be silenced in this conversation? That's a feminist too, but she hasn't written books. You're not going to quote her like we do Hooks, like we do Lord, like we do Morrison and everyone else.